Hello, I have Lauren Segalla on the show, an embodiment and pleasure mentor. Ooh, I love that. How are you today?
I am feeling really good. I got up early this morning. I got my workout in. I'm in my spring of my cycle too. So I'm feeling very outward and social, like a social butterfly, and
Hmm.
seeing all the light in the world, in myself and in others, like super easily. So really just like savoring that, because I know it's not going to be like this every day.
Yeah, time's ticking. You only have like what, a few more days?
Well, I haven't ovulated yet, so
Okay. Oh, so we're
we
looking at a
got
week.
time, girl.
Oh, you look so beautiful. I just have to give a backstory how we met. So, Lauren and I met through Natalia Benson's Conscious Babe Business School, both of us stepping into entrepreneurial conscious babes, being our own
Mm.
CEOs. And Natalia, in all of her Cupid archetype, put us together as accountability partners. And what's so beautiful is that Lauren, you're a nurse too,
Yeah,
by trade.
by trade.
By
Labor
trade.
and delivery, the
Labor
birth
and
world.
deliver. Birth world. And at the time I was in the death world. And so
Phew! I just got chills.
so it was so just magical in its own way coming together where we got to like bring these portals. They're the same portal, but to
Yeah.
come together and where we were, and now we're like making all of our dreams come true. And to me, for the audience that's listening but can't see her, Lauren is like the epitome of like the juiciest peach. She's so yummy and delicious and so sensual and sexy, and my Italian
Mm.
sister from the East Coast, and she rocks it. And I am just like so honored to have you here and to
Oh my
know you, just to
God.
know you.
Same, girl. Same. Thank you for saying that, for real. Like, thank you so much. I'm in a season of my life where I've never felt more confident, and like I can honestly like look in the mirror even on like my lowest confidence days and just be like, damn, like you are beautiful. And it's just
Mm.
like the self-love work that I've done. It's like I've gone into the crevices and I've like cleaned up the cobwebs, and I've met those places that have, we all have the inner roommate, right, that might say some shit that we're just like, well, you look a little fat in that, or you shouldn't wear your shorts because you got cellulite. And it's like, I'm gonna do it anyway because I fucking love myself. I love my
Mm.
body. And it's so interesting how when that switch flips and we really start embodying that, it gets mirrored to us by other people.
Yeah.
And it's like it's just a byproduct. It's not like why I did it, but it's such an interesting experiment. Like the universe is so funny.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Just the reflections that we
So
get.
funny.
The good and the bad of like, oh, I
Yeah.
don't like, I'm not reflect like a certain reflection that's maybe of a lower consciousness or where we were, to reflect that of like, affirmation of like, yeah, I'm not doing that anymore.
Yeah.
So I want to talk more about like this work that you've done and your embodiment and the pleasure piece for you to get to this really
Mm.
juicy stage in your life where you can feel so confident in who you are. And I imagine that a lot of this inner work and shadow work that you've navigated, how much of it was held in your womb and doing this work,
Mm.
since that's what you do.
Yeah. Well, as birth work is really my tried and true. It's like ever since I was 5 years old, it's like birth work and just pregnancy, childbirth, all the things. Like my Barbies have babies. Like I was just so in awe of that process. And so I feel as though I was so deeply connected to that, women's empowerment, and like really being like, no, women can do hard things. Like we can do these things. And being in a female body and having the bleed and going through those emotions, it's like that's not a bad thing. It's like that's our superpower, that's our gift. um, and I'm sure as many other people can relate, like I was on the birth control pill for like 9 years, in my early 20s. And it wasn't until I shifted off of that, and it was a pretty gnarly breakup that I went through, that kind of caused my spiritual awakening and kind of like cracked me open like an egg. And then once I found all those pieces, I was like, being on birth control doesn't feel right. So then I got off of that, and all of a sudden life started becoming more vibrant, more like 3D. Like it wasn't as like one dimensional, it wasn't as muted.
Hmm.
And it allowed me to start playing with the rhythms of my own body and my own specifically emotional ebbs and flows. As you know, moving through this cycle, it's like depending on where our hormones are at, that's where our emotional capacity is going to be. And so this got me really, it kind of forced me to do it, because luteal phase, which is the phase right before you bleed, has always been a really difficult, crunchy, thick time for me. And no one ever really explained to me, like, this is a magical part for you. Like, this is a beautiful time, even though it might not be quote unquote acceptable and beautiful by society's standards. Like, this is a beautiful time for you to really bring all those emotions to the surface, so you can see all these parts of you that just really just want love and compassion, and like for you to welcome them to a place in your heart. So then when you do bleed, you can release and then kind of complete the cycle. So it got me into this way of like, oh, okay, if I really allow this parts of me to be seen, held, and loved at this time, and then I let them shed, I let them bleed, then I can really come into a place of the springtime and summer where I'm like feeling the peak and feeling the beautiful. It's like, you can't feel the peak of pleasure without really knowing what it's like to be at the depths of despair and grief and just like deep heartache. Because I really truly believe that heartache is our cracking open. It's how we feel. I mean, it's why we're here on this
Yeah.
planet. Like, we came into these bodies to experience, to be in joy with everything, whether that's, quote unquote good or bad. We put these labels on things, but nothing is inherently good or bad. It just is.
Yeah. Mm, it's so beautiful. So how how long is this journey? I mean, this journey is always ongoing, but when were you already doing this work for others, or was this work happening in yourself first for it to be
I
like this? Yeah.
mean, I feel like there was an element that was inherently within me already. Like I said, as a child, I felt so in tune with others' emotions and my own emotions, and the whole idea of childbirth. But it wasn't until I went through, relationships have been my biggest teacher, specifically relationships with the masculine. It's like next freaking level, babe. Like, oh my God. I mean, I know you know, but whoa.
I
And
know.
it's like, it's wild. It's wild. Like, you think you got all your shit figured out. And then it's like, okay, get into a relationship, especially with a sex addict or like a narcissistic person. And you're like, whoa,
Just for
you're
added
just like,
bonus.
yeah, exactly. It's like a
Oh my
rocket
God.
ship.
Yeah. No, I love that you
Um,
say that because I'm now single, but I really miss being in relationship because I have realized that relationships are the vehicle to God. Like that's how I'm experiencing like the hardest parts of myself and the best parts of myself is in reflection of relationship.
yeah.
And I accept that of myself now. Like I don't have to, whatever, but I love that you're mentioning relationship, and I know that you have been doing some work around conscious relationship and womb sovereignty, which I
Mm.
really want to pick your brain about that because I'm like in the thick of that right now and navigating some really interesting themes. So,
Ooh,
what's up?
yeah. I mean, everything's all connected, right? Like
Mhm.
literally everything's connected. And so I'm in a female body. I have a womb and I go through these monthly cycles. If we can't fully lean into that cyclical nature and honor the seasons, we won't be able to receive that outside of our own body, our own, specifically if we're talking about the womb, right? So, if we're really, really resisting our fall and our winter, and I love that you're creating this sacred dark, because it's so important. Like, as women, we're pressured by society to show up, keep producing, always be there for people. Like, we're always like, we're summer obsessed as a
Yeah.
culture. We're
Yeah.
literally summer obsessed,
Yeah.
and it's killing us. It's eating us from the inside out, like this toxic, um yeah, it's just so toxic. And I love when you can come to a place of honoring and respecting this natural rhythm within your own body, you subsequently learn to honor and respect the seasons outwardly.
Mm-hmm.
So, seasons happen in business, they happen in relationships, they happen, physically. And so it's like, it was just so interesting seeing how, okay, if I'm resisting the fall phase of my menstrual cycle, and I'm resisting the grieving and like the letting go and just like the really facing those shadow parts, I'm also not allowing myself to really feel those things and honor those things in relationship dynamic,
Mm.
which if you push those away, you keep pushing that down, your relationship's going to blow up, and
Yeah.
it's just going to be super toxic.
Yeah.
And so yeah, it's just all super connected.
Absolutely, it is. Hmm. So, what have you found to be like as you've been embodying all of your seasons and all of your cycle and letting that go out to the macro level as well? So, seeing that being reflected in relationships, what does that look like for you when you think about being in conscious relationship, conscious relating, and
Mm.
yeah, holding, this the womb sovereignty that you speak of, and just dancing with a
Mm.
partner that's able to be cyclical with you, honor the cycles. How are you speaking to that? How are you holding that boundary? Is it tough? Is it tough navigating? Do you get resistance met from the masculine? Like, yeah, dive into that.
For sure. Oh my God, there's so much resistance. Mostly within myself because I'm a recovering people pleaser. So it's very specifically with the masculine, never wanting to ruffle any feathers. And I don't want to like take the precious time that we have together to talk about the hard things, because then it's just going to ruin the time we have. Let's just enjoy it. And I know so many can relate. It's just, so it's meeting the resistance within myself and doing the self-love work is the foundation piece. Like if we can't meet those parts within ourselves first, how can we expect someone outside of
Totally.
ourselves to meet us, especially the masculine? Because you have to think too, for so long we've been conditioned in a culture where men, I'm going to generalize here, men see women's cycle as a burden, as like something that's like should be in like quiet, should be like shoved down, shouldn't be talked about. And this is like our bleeds as well as our sexuality, and it's just been so repressed within us. And so if we can't fully step in and acknowledge and own that power for ourselves, how can we expect the men to show up for us? So it's really like, this is something that you need to come to first on your own. And
Mm-hmm.
then it's like educating the men in your life too. I don't know the name of this app, but there's this really cool app where if you're in relationship with someone, you can like track your cycle, and then they're aware of like where you are and like what day you're in and like how they can support you in that, which I think is just like so cool, because our cycles are for everybody. They're not just for women. Like if we could come into a place of like really allowing ourselves to be in our yin, for example, and like
Mm-hmm.
letting the men or the people who aren't bleeding at that time to like do the thing, it
Mm-hmm.
comes into a place of balance. We can't all be trying to, you know, be in our summer all the time. It just doesn't work. So yeah, I think just like educating and really like letting the men see, because I think there are men that are ready to, they're really willing to be like, okay, learn, like tell me more, like how can I support you? um and this idea of getting in tune with your own emotions and your own feelings. I read a study a couple days ago. It was a John Gottman study. He's a professor out in Washington, and they did a study of this idea of meta emotions, and how you feel about your feelings is like key as far as the quote unquote success of a relationship.
Hmm.
And so it's like, do you have a common emotional template with your partner? And Gottman found like if people have clashing meta emotional styles, say, they have a really tough time dealing with anger, for example, if like one partner is super uncomfortable with anger and you don't, there's going to be discord there. There's going to be disconnect. Like you have to both be on the same sort of meta emotional spectrum of like, this emotion is okay, or this emotion is not okay. You know what I mean? Like, so
Mm,
really getting in tune with your own emotional swings and pendulating systems to be able to come into harmony with a partner, because conflict's going to arise. Right. So it's just a
totally.
matter of how you deal with that.
What is meta?
Like a big, like meta, just like bigger view, like a
Okay,
zoomed
bigger
out
view. Okay,
view.
okay.
Yeah.
And so then when you're also saying that, like if they're sharing the same thing, is it like the natural law of similars? So if both people are coming in with like anger, do you feel like then that, like according to the study and maybe intuitively, do you feel like then that's better than one person coming in with anger and the other person not?
I don't think it's a matter of like the specific emotion. I think it's just how you feel about emotions in general. So
I
like
see.
if you're with someone who has been brought up and conditioned to believe that anger is inherently bad, right? And so they do everything in their power to shove anger down. They won't allow themselves to express anger. Whereas if they see their partner might have a quote unquote healthy relationship with their anger, and they'll, you know, go through rage practices, or they'll express their anger to their partner. But if that partner isn't okay with the anger within themselves, they're going to see that anger as like a threat, or as a
Mm,
and then they're going to want to shut down and close down, and that causes the disconnect between the partners. So I think keeping the communication open as far
yeah.
as like the emotions go. Yeah, humans, we're very afraid of our emotional capacity, and I think that's where a lot of the inherent fear around women specifically, because we do go through such an intense you know, depth and peak of our emotional you know, galaxy throughout our month.
Yeah,
It's like it can be intense, and so it's
totally.
like, can we hold that?
When really it's just like, yes, it's intense, but it's just permission.
Yeah.
It's permission for the masculine to be able to feel it all too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hmm.
Because they feel a lot
They
too, you know, like
do,
they feel
yeah.
so much. And I'm seeing so many beautiful men like really step up and start uncovering those parts in their own hearts that they've maybe shut down, and they haven't been able to look at those parts. And it's really, really beautiful to see. It's really beautiful to see.
Hmm.
Yeah.
You're doing good work.
I'm trying.
You're doing.
Trying, girl.
So, in order to the pleasure mentor piece, in order to access this, you know, deep pleasure portal, and you mentioned going into the depth of like the struggle or the shadow, like the opposite, and we're entering shadow season. We're kind of in the pre-shadow of shadow season. I feel like Scorpio season's like full on for us collectively.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, buckle up. So with that being said, like what are some what is it that you do? Like what is it that you do in order to, like, I see you, you're glowing, you have done so much work, you're confident, you're able to tell, the masculine no, you're feeling sovereign, but it's like it took work to get there. And what did
100%.
that work look like for you?
100%. Ooh. So one of my teachers, Layla Martin, love her. She talks about this idea of pleasure and purification, and
Mm,
how we all want the pleasure, right? We think the
mm-hmm.
pleasure is the good thing, but specifically like in sex, for example, you're having this amazing experience with a partner. Maybe you're experiencing cervical orgasm, and you're like reaching the depths of like the center of the earth, as well as like the infinite cosmos, and you're experiencing all this pleasure. And then all of a sudden something gets unlocked where you start feeling this uncomfortable, maybe grief arises, or you're feeling numbness, or you're feeling all this rage all of a sudden. Like I've had instances where I've been intimate with someone and I've legit just wanted to start crying, and like I've needed to take a time to be like, oh my God, this is so, I don't know what this is. I don't know what's coming up. But I need to take a moment and like let this purge,
Mm-hmm.
literally purge, because our body minds hold on to, like, I know you're into somatic experiencing, and you know that the
Mm-hmm.
subtle body speaks. Like our body holds all these different energetic codes that sometimes, you know, when they get poked or when they get like nudged, it's a beautiful opportunity to get out of the way and let that cycle complete. And so this looks like for me, pleasure practices where I allow the purging, I allow the purification. When something is ready to come to the surface and release out of you, you got to get the fuck out of the way and you got to let it happen. And this looks like, you know, allowing the breath, allowing the sound, allowing the movement, allowing the tears. Like when you want to cry, cry. Like the worst thing you can do is try and shove that down or be quiet or not, you know, not get angry.
Yeah.
Girl, some of my pleasure practices look like screaming into a pillow, like deep primal screams from my toes. And it's so funny too because like I'm living with my parents right now, and I'll be like, all right, I'm going into a process. Like if you hear screaming, it's like it's fine, you know, like you just gotta let them know. But we need to make this normal. We
Yeah.
need to make
Yeah.
it normal. And like I said with you before we started recording, I was living with a toddler for the past 3.5 weeks, and like seeing her process of like when she's feeling really pissed off, she's going to let you know and she's going to move through it and she's going to cry so deeply and hard. And then within 5 minutes, she's giggling and playing with her meta tiles. You know what I mean? So it's like, oh, it can be that easy, but
Yeah.
we've just been cultured and I think brought up to believe that, you know, and that's like shadow work in general and like growing up where you're not receiving love because you can't show your anger to your mom, for example, and she doesn't allow that. You're going to repress that and you're going to push that down and you're not going to want to, you know, show that. So it's our responsibility as adults to like reparent those parts of ourselves that have been shamed
Yeah.
and told that they don't have a place, and when they absolutely do. And so it's like the layers, you know, it's taken time. It's taken time. This process is not to be rushed. This is I use the wisdom of my menstrual cycle. So I'll tap
Hmm.
into, if I'm in my luteal, my emotions and a lot of things are right on the surface for me to access. So I use that time. I go into breath work. I go into my pleasure practices and my processes, and I really let those emotional things flow so that once I do bleed and I'm in my summer and spring, I feel so much lighter. And it's like, oh, I feel like a new birth, you know, has happened and like
Hmm.
rebirthed. Yeah.
That's beautiful.
Yeah. I was like, that was a lot, but it's so hard when people ask you that question. It's like, oh, how do you, it's like
I
so
know.
much,
Yeah,
you
because
know?
it's like having a giant toolbox and being able to pull on anything depending on like what cycle you're in, what season you're in, and what feels good. And you posted a video, I don't know, a couple months ago of this breathwork journey that you were doing, and I shared it, and so many people that whoever I shared it with, and they were sharing it, and it was like went viral in our little community of like women that are doing this work. What type of breath? I mean, for the audience that's listening, can you explain what it is that you're doing? I don't know what that breath's called. I've done it before, and it helped alchemize some shit really efficiently. So I would
Yeah.
love for you to like talk about that because I feel like that's a great resource that men and women could tune into as we're entering shadow season of like here's like an efficient
Mm.
model.
Yeah. Oh God, I have so much resistance to breath work sometimes. Like
Mm.
my ego is just like, Lauren, are you sure? Are you sure you want to like sit down and do this? And I'm just like, I know I have to. Because it's just that like initial threshold, you know, it's
Yeah.
like swimming past the reef and past the breakers. And like once you get past the breakers, then it's smooth sailing,
Hmm.
literally. And you're just like, okay, this is amazing. But it's that initial threshold that takes the most power to get through. And then once you do, it's good. So I Bishop Reed is a sister of mine who is very much into the breathwork world, and that was her journey that I went with. And it was about a 45-minute session, connected breath. So basically, it's just deep belly breath from like the lower belly all the way up to the diaphragm to the chest, and then out the mouth, and then in the mouth, out the mouth. So it's in and out the mouth. Um, and like I said, there's a lot of resistance that comes up, specifically like physiologically. You go into like tetany, or you
Mm-hmm.
start your body will start being like, no, this isn't right, or your mind will be like, this is, you're gonna die if you keep breathing this way. And then it's
Mm-hmm.
a matter of like pushing through that threshold. And then she, during that specific breath work session, she gave us cues of like, okay, like once we got through like a 10-minute connected breath, she gave us cues of like, okay, grab your pillow and start like releasing, however that looks for you. And sometimes you have to give a little bit of a push to get that started. And it's like you start screaming in your pillow. And then something else like takes over. And it's just like this. Sometimes memories can come up. Sometimes it's like flashbacks, but sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's just this like primal urge that you have, like these primal screams. Like I felt like came from like the base of my womb all the way up through my body and out my mouth. And I felt like I remember in that specific breathwork session, I felt like I was like processing this anger and this rage for all of the women in my lineage. Like,
Mm-hmm.
and I was looking at a photo of my grandmother like on my dresser, and I was just like, wow, like the amount of anger and rage and energy that she must have suppressed throughout her life to be able to just survive because it wasn't safe for her to feel those things. I'm doing this for her. And it was
Mm-hmm.
like, it's such a beautiful way to connect with your ancestors too. I
Yeah.
could like almost cry,
Mm-hmm.
because it's just like, this is the work. Like, this is the beautiful work that you get to do for your ancestors and your children,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like allowing your emotions to be. They're not bad. Just move it through. We're animal beings. Like, we're primal beings. We have to make those things okay within us, to be able to be a vibrant, healthy, whole human being. Or else it's going to come up as disease and all
Yeah.
these other things that might come up, and my grandmother died from colon cancer. And I firmly believe it's because she was holding on to, right? Because the colon is like energetically
Yep.
is where we hold, we don't release.
Yeah.
And so, eventually that's what took her. And I really truly, I know that if she had an outlet or a way to process her emotions like that for through breathwork for an example, it wouldn't have turned out that way.
Mm.
Yeah.
Mm. It's beautiful.
But yeah, I know that video that video was like a little intense. Like I had gotten some comments of like, are you all right? Or like like what's going on, um
Just healing my
uh,
lineage, no big deal.
yeah, NBD, like just a typical Saturday.
What are you doing?
Yeah, seriously.
Yeah, no,
Um,
that's really, really powerful work. And I loved watching the video, but I felt my own resistance come up while I
mm,
was watching it. And it's the resistance of like, oh, this is necessary. Like
yeah,
this, like we have to do this. And just like you said, it's like, that apprehension of like, I don't want to, I don't want to, I don't want to, because we know unconsciously that it's what we need. And it's
yeah,
gonna feel fucking hard, but
yeah,
it's necessary. Like we have to. It's like, yeah, I just really believe, our generation and the generations that are coming in after us are just like really here to, stop the buck from all the bullshit that's been happening before in our lineage. Like, yeah,
yes,
we're here to
yes.
alchemize it.
That's how we're gonna heal this
That's how we're gonna
planet.
heal.
Teaching our
Absolutely.
children that those emotions are okay and that
Yeah,
like to move through it. Like that's like foundational. It's foundational.
it is. And I really like when you're talking about doing that breath work, because I've done that breath work before, but I went in with a specific like intention, or I went in with a specific memory. I went in with a
Oh,
specific
okay.
trauma memory, and then
Hmm.
used the breath to help alchemize it through. But you're saying that it's accessible, like just breathe, and then things can come to you just even naturally, and then you
Yeah.
probably like once you're in the throes of it, you're like, okay, this is what we're working on, grandma. This is what I'm
Right.
processing.
Super, yeah, super organic. And like you said, and this is happening in the subconscious, right? And so
Mm-hmm.
95% of the information that we have isn't conscious to us. Like there's only 5% as far as some of the studies. And so it's like that breath work is kind of the key that opens the floodgates to allow yourself to feel all that. And sometimes there won't be specific memories that come up. There won't be specific things that you're working through. It's just the energy. It's just the energy. Let it move, get out of the way. Your mind's going to come in and like try and, make it, give it meaning and like label it somehow.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the key is to really just organically allow your body to feel it and process it without making it bad or good or a specific,
Yeah, and without even
thing.
trying to like fix it, just let it be
Yeah,
there.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And then subsequently it does fix it, which is like the irony if you
Yeah,
just like
absolutely.
surrender and allow. Yeah.
Ooh, I'm feeling like a collaboration or some sort of event that I want to put in your lap and then you can decide who to collaborate with. But I'm feeling like a Samhain. So for those that are
Hmm.
listening that aren't aware, Samhain is on the wheel, how we celebrate Halloween, a time to honor our ancestors. The veil is the thinnest, in terms of like the darkest night.
Hmm.
I'm feeling like an ancestral Samhain breathwork journey.
Ooh. This is so crazy because after this interview with you, I have a call with Bishop, the girl that is into
Yeah.
breath work. So I'm gonna bring that up to her, and I know she's down for the shadow work as well. She's a shadow work sister too. So thank you for saying that because I've been feeling that too.
Yeah, I feel like that what a way to that's accessible to honor our ancestors and not
Hmm.
just bringing in their imagery and honoring them, but also alchemizing what they couldn't.
Yes.
And through the breath work on that portal time.
Yeah.
You have to do it.
Oh. All right. Fine. Yeah. I
Oh.
know. Oh, shadow season.
I know. I'm like in the pre-shadow of shadow right now. I'm like, okay,
Mm-hmm.
I see
The
you.
rumbling has begun.
The rumbling has begun.
And this new moon, isn't there a solar eclipse at the end of this month? It's like
Yeah, we're
a
having
new
this
moon.
solar eclipse and the lunar eclipse. And it's so we had it in April, May before, where solar
Yeah.
eclipse was in Taurus, lunar eclipse in Scorpio, and then this time it's solar eclipse in Scorpio
2
and
degrees of
lunar,
Scorpio,
yeah,
which is
Taurus.
my dark moon Lilith. It's literally on the exact point that it's happening on my black moon Lilith. I'm like, LOL.
I mean,
Sexuality
honestly, like,
expression.
yeah, well, that's amazing. Like, you don't even have to do anything. Just like, just like light a candle, and be like, okay, I'm here.
I was thinking of like what, because I was thinking of leading like a pleasure practice or like a sex magic pleasure practice, but then I'm like, maybe I want this to be more like my own thing and like do my
Hmm.
own little ceremony versus guiding others.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I'm still playing with that energy. I'm kind of eclipse season is always, you know,
It is. I'm actually having my next interview is with an astrologer that's going to come on specifically talking about
very
eclipse
cool.
season and what's happening
Oh,
collectively for
that's
all
gonna
of
be a good
us.
one.
Uh-huh. Sex magic. Tell me about that. You pleasure mentor.
Yeah. So sex magic. I feel like it gets a bad rap. A lot of like people who aren't into the woo woo are very like, oh, what is sex magic? Like really? Like it's so judgy. But it really is such like on a physiological level. Like I'm such a science nerd and it's like cultivating this energy, like not only does it make babies, right? But
Hmm.
we can use this energy as fuel to direct our creative endeavors, to direct if we know we're about to have a hard conversation with a lover. And it's like we need that extra tender love and care and energy to support that.
Yeah.
Go into a sex magic practice. And so this is a matter of consciously relating with your sexual energy and moving it through what they call in the Taoist tradition a microcosmic orbit through your body, using your breath as a vehicle for prana, because your breath is the vehicle for prana, right? And so
Hmm.
it's just this conscious way of noticing this energy move and bringing it up through your body and Most people, when we think of self-pleasure or having an orgasm, we feel it and see it as more of a localized experience of like just in the pelvis, or it's just clitoral. It's very just like localized. And with, sex magic specifically, it's not really about reaching a climax at all. It's more of just, let's play with this energy and see if we can like move it like an accordion up and down through our body.
Hmm.
And it's better than coffee. Like, it just gives you this energy. It gives you this like boost of making love to life. Like that's like the essence of Tantra, is like this, like, how do we connect? How do we interweave with everything that we're coming into contact with? And it's using this energy as a tool. It's using your prana as a way to fuel your life. And it releases all, the good hormones and everything that's going to make you want to take the step towards expansion. It's going to make you
Totally.
want to take the step towards, saying the thing that you might not have said in the past, or,
Totally.
calling that person and telling them how you feel, because now you have all this extra energy and love that, if, quote unquote, it doesn't go well for you, you have a beautiful place to come home to and resource, and really truly love yourself. It's not this like magical thing where, okay, I'm going to masturbate and think about what I want to bring into my life, and all of a sudden it's going to appear. It's going to give me the capacity that's going to open my mind, open my heart, open all these places in me, so that I can be a vessel to receive the information that I need to take the steps towards creating that goal, towards manifesting what I
Yes.
want.
Yes. Yeah, I'm so glad that you mentioned that, because this has been a conversation that I've been sitting with, because we can, especially like within a spiritual community that's all about manifestation, and, they want, want the perfect partner, the perfect
Yeah.
job, or the bank account, or the car, whatever it is, and it's like, and those are our birthrights to be able to have the things and luxuries we want to have. But when we're not doing the work to build capacity to hold it, then when those things come in, we like unconsciously self sabotage it,
Yeah.
because we haven't like worked with our body to be able to hold these new, bigger, expanded versions of ourself, the expanded version of love and sacred union, or the 6-figure or 7-figure bank account that we've been, yeah, like, whatever it is, So I really love that you shared that, because I believe from most women that I've talked to that work with sex magic, there's more of an idea of, oh, visualize the thing that you want and what you're wanting to call in. And then you either self pleasure or you work with a partner, and then you're using that magic to alchemize to create the conception of the very thing that you want. And not that there's anything wrong with that, but I really love your approach and philosophy, because you have to have the capacity to hold it. It doesn't matter what you get if you haven't learned how to hold, to expand the capacity.
100%. And that's like, it's like nervous system work too.
Yeah.
It's like going into that and letting,
Yeah.
using what Peter Levine coined the term pendulation. So like
Mm-hmm.
going to your edge of tolerance, being there with it, holding it, and then coming back to a place of homeostasis, of resource, and then just stretching it. It's like you go to the gym, you don't build big muscles overnight. It's these slow expanding. If you want the long term, success, you want to go slow and steady and not force, because this
Yeah.
work is not forced. Like, um, I've really been diving into the science behind like cervical orgasm, for example, and how it is this really transcendental experience. And it's not an orgasm that you can think your way into or force yourself into. Like clitoral, I feel like you could, play a DJ set real quick and like you get to a place where you're good. Like it finishes you. But cervical orgasm is very much a metaphor for life and for this work, because it's like, okay, it's building and it's so intense. You almost kind of want to clench to like close it off and to force it, but you really have to just learn how to deep breathe and relax and surrender deeply into that process to allow it to come through, to allow it to happen. um, and it's just like a different level. It's just like a different level. But you're so
Absolutely.
right about the capacity. I always talk about that, the capacity to hold.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I feel like it's kind of an inappropriate question, but I have to ask because you probably know the answer. And so we're going to
No
begin
question
this.
is inappropriate for me. I love
Okay,
talking
I
about the
know.
taboo.
Okay, because it's about to get X-rated up in here. But
Yes.
so when a woman, for example, when she squirts, like what type of like orgasm is happening in her body, and for because I know that feeling of like the threshold of like, oh, I can't, like holding on. But there's just
Hmm.
when it actually happens, it's like, what the fuck? Because I mean, it's just like, completely unlike anything else. So is that like a cervical orgasm, or what type of orgasm is that, and what's happening from?
So the squirting is essentially the fluid that's coming out of your G spot. So it is coming out of your urethra. So it might feel like pee,
Hmm.
but it's not. It's a different kind of fluid. They call it amrita in Sanskrit. It's like the sacred fluid that there's
Mm.
been like, I mean, you can use that fluid for like ceremony. You can use it to anoint your lover. Like it's a very powerful fluid. Like I forget where I read this, but it was, the ancient times. I'm pretty sure Egypt, because Egypt's were they were just a bunch of people that just love sex and using this energy. And like they were on to something. Um, like using that fluid that the woman would eject, and then the men would ingest it. They would ingest this fluid because it's this like
Wow.
powerful, like from the gods. It's like nectar of the gods, really. Fluid, and that's more of a stimulating your G spot. I call it the goddess spot because the G spot was named after a male doctor that it was after his name. I forget his name, but I'm like, I refuse to call it the G spot. I say the goddess spot. And so it's just like it's playing with that area so that it can eject out of it. But cervical is a bit different because it's a bit more deeper and it's more so connected. It's directly connected to your vagus nerve, so it's a bit more of like nervous system type work with that. Um, but I mean, there's so many pleasure centers internally, and I feel like they don't all get a good rap. Like we don't talk about them enough, and a lot of women, suffer with numbness, and they might not have had the courage to explore those parts of themselves.
Yeah.
But I really think it's such a beautiful terrain that is so underexplored.
Yeah, and I've heard that women have 13 pleasure
Whoa.
centers. Yeah,
Yes.
different spaces where we could,
I mean, I
yeah,
believe it. I don't
yeah,
know all the 13, but I absolutely believe it.
like back of throat,
Oh,
nipples.
yes.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. You can
in
have
terms
like
of like you can
throatgasm.
orgasms. Yeah.
Yeah, throatgasm, heartgasm. Like, but it's interesting because the cervix is directly connected, right, to the vagus
Hmm.
nerve. So it's like you can, if you're opening your throat, say, you're giving head and because some women really like giving head. I love giving head. I think
Yeah,
it's really
yeah, same.
pleasurable. And I have had experiences of it's not the typical orgasm that you would experience,
Hmm.
but it's this like pulsation of energy. I don't know how to explain it. It's like this like how you would experience regular orgasm, how the muscles contract and they
Yeah,
relax. It's like, but it's energetic. And you feel it just like move like a wow, wow, wow. And it just gets bigger and bigger and it like follows but if your throat opens, your cervix opens. So if
yeah,
you want to, and I think I'm pretty sure in the Taoist tradition, that's the heart center is the energetic point for the cervix is the heart point. So it's all deeply connected right there.
hmm
And I don't think that design was by accident. I think
no, yeah.
that's a like tool that we could use.
Yeah. Well, and that's something that we talked about is like the sacred union of heart and womb.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. So deeply. I mean, as women, we penetrate with our hearts. Like
yeah,
that's how we penetrate, right?
yeah,
And we receive through our wombs. And then
yeah.
it's vice versa for the masculine.
Hmm. I love that. Ooh, this has been like I'm kind of sweating a little bit, like just going
I
to all the
know.
places. I'm like, whoo, okay, clear my schedule this afternoon. Like,
I know. It like makes you want to like, yeah, do it up. I know.
that's why I love talking with you, is because I could just, yeah, you're just like full permission to. I mean, I believe that I'm like a sensual woman as well, but when I'm with you, I just feel like just full permission to just go ham, go ham with
Yes.
it, you know? It's like, yeah,
Yeah.
like it's my birthright and I can just like swim in
Yeah.
these waters and it just feels so good to just like be so deeply in the feminine essence.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. It's
yummy.
so nourishing
It's
and
so nourishing.
healing.
Yeah. So, should we like share with people what we're creating?
Yes, absolutely.
So, this has been in the works since, well, probably since we first met a couple of years
Literally.
ago of like, yeah, having a retreat together. And we both are into pleasure and we both are deeply feminine women that are looking forward to bringing this medicine and this access point to women that are wanting to explore their bodies more, understand their cycles more,
Yeah.
explore the feminine way, the feminine mystery more.
Yeah. It's foundational.
It
It's
is.
really such foundational work. And if we do want to change the world, it's like, okay, women are the weavers, right? We're the
Mm-hmm.
weavers of society. We're the
Mm-hmm.
connectors. We're like the mycelial network.
Yeah.
Um, and and I really, it's such foundational work. If you're disconnected from your womb and your pussy and just this whole area down here, you're not going to be able to live to the full
Yeah.
capacity that you know that you can. Like there's a deeper part of a woman that knows that she can hold and go to the depths and be that. And yeah, I've seen the trend of like people, more and more people getting off birth control now, and a lot more people coming to me of like, okay, well, how can I start getting into it with my cycle and learning about the seasons and honoring the natural rhythms of my body, because everything's a cycle,
Mm-hmm.
everything's a life death cycle. Like, and the more we can just go and flow with it instead of fighting against it, the easier it will be. And tuning into the womb's wisdom, I just, it's just key. It's just key.
It is. It really is. It's just that for me, like being a woman is the path.
Yeah.
It is the spiritual path. And so being able to, access and learn all of these pleasure centers and like you said, our womb and our pussy and the wisdom that's held and the pleasure that's held in these centers, it's like that's that's enough in terms of
Yeah.
like this is my work for life. And it's yeah, it's once again like once you cross some of those thresholds and get over that resistance piece that first comes up when you're coming off of birth control or when you're learning how to say no for the first time, or
Mm,
that does feel good, that doesn't feel good, and just like all of those little nuanced pieces of when we start reclaiming our femininity and our womanhood, it's just like it provides the capacity for the deepest pleasure of just being a
yes.
woman.
Yes, and it's so important that the maidens have the mother
Mm-hmm.
archetype to be able to look to and be like, oh, wow, this is a possibility for me. Like sometimes it takes, women coming together and seeing other women doing the work and just even being witnessed in your own process. Like I've had people relay to me that they've learned so much and like have changed so much just by witnessing me in my own process. And we haven't even had a dialogue. Like I didn't
Yeah.
coach them. I didn't do anything to help. I was just embodied in who I am
Yes.
and what I stand for. And it's like, you don't realize the ripple effect you have just by coming into this power within yourself and really tuning into your womb's wisdom and saying no and having the hard conversations and putting your bleed first. For example, I got offered to be a part of this documentary this guy's creating, and he goes, so when's a good time to like, get your interview, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, well, I only do interviews when I'm ovulating or in my follicular. I don't necessarily do it when I'm, about to bleed. And he's like, oh, wow. Okay. That's amazing. This is why I want you on the documentary. It's like if more women came out and said like, no, this is not going to work for me. This isn't working for my schedule. Cause we live in a patriarchal society where the
Yeah.
system and the cycle works for a man and not for us.
Yeah.
And so we need to reclaim that back and start
Totally.
creating the rules on ourselves.
Yeah.
Um, and I think being in community and communion with women is the place that's going to start.
Absolutely. Yeah. The mentors and the full permission.
Yeah.
Woo! Well, I'm
Yeah.
excited.
So when is this retreat happening?
It's happening in May.
Yes. Beltane.
We're on Beltane, yeah, Sacred Union of Heart and Womb. And we're coming together to bring in some beautiful feminine plant allies as well. Breath work, embodiment practices, pleasure practices, and just deep feminine transmissions to come through.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's gonna be who even knows what it's gonna be? Because every retreat that I've been a part of or run, it's like this like portal. And you can plan and plan and plan. Like my Capricorn self loves to plan. But once you're in it, it's again another surrendering of just
Yeah.
getting out of the way and what wants to be most alive in that part. And depending on, I love retreats because depending on who signs up, it's like that's the stew, like that's the recipe for like the beautiful soup that we're going to create.
Yeah.
Yeah, really
Hmm.
excited.
I'm excited too. And it's going to be in Colorado for those that are listening. Beautiful space in Colorado.
Mm.
So there'll be more information coming out for sure, obviously. But consider this interview a teaser of our energy together and
Yeah.
all the yumminess that we can cook up in that kitchen.
Yes. Oh my
Is there
God.
anything else that you would like to say before we get off of here? Anything collectively to womb holders at this point, or to the men that are living with women?
Hmm. Oh, there's just so much. There's so much that's moving through. I feel like since like relationships are so much in my forefront right now, I've had so many opportunities to be able to speak my no and hold my boundaries when it comes to dating because I am dating now and it's like it's fun and it's can also be really confronting. Um, but especially specifically for women who are in this place or on this path of reclaiming that part of themselves, it's like know that you're not alone. Like you're not alone. And I know we've created a society where it's very isolated and, you might be moving through something and you think that no one else is ever experiencing what you're experiencing, but know that there are other women that are feeling this. And having, the courage to go there and meet those parts of yourself is what's going to transform your life.
Mm-hmm.
There's no part of you that is bad. There's no part of you that doesn't deserve love. There's no part of you that deserves to be shamed. And so it's just a matter of how deeply can you learn to love those parts of yourself, because that's how you're going to heal. That's how you're going to heal spiritually,
Yeah.
energetically, physically. And I love when women try and, I used to be a fixer upper, a Bob the Builder type, where I would like date people where I would have to like, oh, read this book or come to this meditation class
Same.
with me, or like, are you sure you want to drink that or eat that? Like, I was just such a, you know what I mean?
I'm Bob the Builder.
Literally. And
Yeah.
that's such a maiden way of living. And it's like the men get inspired by seeing us in our power and doing our things. And if we can just really fully tune in and do the work ourselves internally,
Yeah.
it's just going to be a byproduct. They're going to want to meet us. They're not going to have a choice. They're going to
Totally.
have to up level, you
Or they
know?
fall away, which is fine too. Then it's just like, do
Yes.
you just keep going, keep expanding, keep going?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hmm. Thank you so much for being on this show and making it juicy. And you are just such a gem to me.
Yeah, that was so fun. And I
Yeah.
feel like we could talk for
I
hours.
know,
I
I
think
feel
we
that
just
too.
I was like, okay, what else can we talk about?
I know.
Wild.
Uh, well, and I'm going to be posting in the show notes where people can find you and work with you. You take clients one on one.
Yes. Yeah,
Okay.
I have like 3 more spaces available for one-on work with me. I do ecstatic birth work, embodiment work, pleasure work, empowerment. I'm like on the precipice of beginning to work with men too. Like I've been feeling this really
Ooh,
deep call. So yeah, keep an eye out for that too.
I love that. I love that you're extending out to our men because they
Yeah,
need it.
they do.
They need it. And a
They
lot of them are
do.
just like groping in the dark, like they want it, but it's like they don't really know where to turn.
Yeah. Yeah. And a lot of their wounding might have been around the masculine. So they might not feel safe in all men's spaces.
Mm-hmm.
Or, so it's like having a feminine being that they can really fully open up to. I feel really called. I feel really called to start working with men and being the conduit and teaching them how to consciously relate to their own sexual energy and their own urges, because, you know, men can be intense with that energy. And if they don't know how to use it, if they don't know how to harness it and respect it, even, it's like they can cause a lot of trauma and a lot of hurt within
Yeah.
themselves and to other people. So, yeah,
Bless you, sister,
excited for that.
on your
Thank
path
you.
and your work that you're doing.
Thank you.
Well, until next time, thank you for being here.